Reflections today is led by David Kress.
What a beautiful day. Yeah. You look like my brother Stephen. You even have the same smile. This guy with the straw hat. A soundscape is all the sounds in a given habitat. That habitat could be a pond whose soundscape includes croaking frogs, or the ocean's breaking waves. It could be the valley's wind, or the desert's whisperings. Or it could be this soundscape right here. The soundscape is speaking to us all the time. Listen to the sounds around us. Listening to the sounds around us gives us a sense of place, a sense of tranquility. Listening to the voice of the divine right here. Now, please move the body you presently inhabit into a comfortable position where you will listen and be still. Listen. Notice the sounds around you. Notice the sounds within you. Just listen with your whole body. Listen. Listen. Bring this awareness to what we are about to hear.
Our speaker today is Lou Raskin. He's going to talk about the authentic self. He asks, do you know who you are in an authentic sense? He tells us we're not our name alone, nor our past, nor present profession, position, or leisure activity. Lou has resided in Lou has resided in Mexico almost for 10 years, having a home in Mazatlan. He graduated from Naropa University, Boulder, Colorado, with degrees in transpersonal psychology and ecology, which were integrated into the study of eco-psychology. He's worked in the aerospace industry with General Electric, Boeing, and Martin Marietta. Also in public affairs as a program manager with the JCs and staff member of the American Revolution Bicentennial Administration. Let's welcome Lou Raskin.
Thank you, Margaret.
Good morning, everyone. It certainly is a pleasure sharing this beautiful garden spot with all of you, and also to participate in today's, what I consider to be the Ajijic equivalent to TED Talks.
Great.
like a gym light that lights. I'm going to dedicate today's presentation to a longtime good friend of the Open Circle community. Rosemary, as Margaret had mentioned, will be leaving Ajijic tomorrow to continue her ongoing life adventure at her new home in Boulder, Colorado. So thank you, Rosemary, for many years of participation, your thoughtful questions, and insightful comments. You will be missed. So now, being yourself, we're going to start off by asking in a few words who you are. Any takers on that offer? Tell me who you are. Uh-huh. Okay. He doesn't know.
Open. A spiritual being in a human body.
Okay.
Multifaceted.
Multifaceted. Okay.
Please wait for the microphone, because
No, this is just going to be a little improvised.
I understand.
Okay. So I've heard what you've all had to say, from being a spiritual person, a multifaceted, to I have no clue. Now, I'd like to ask you to define yourself from an indisputable family lineage point of view. Would this present yourself differently? Any takers on that? Boy, you're all in the right place. So, would Rosemary kindly ask me who I am?
Who are you?
Thank you, Rosemary. That was not preset. My given name is Lewis, after the paternal grandfather. I'm son of Harry and Esther, who are early 20th century Ukrainian immigrants to the United States. I'm a brother to an older sister, Anita, father of adults, Sherry, Neil, and twins, Mark and Marcy. I'm a grandfather of 6. I'm a companion to Teresa. My archetypal person is the ancestral warrior, peaceful until provoked, and in my quiver, I carry communication skills. And now I stand before you in my internalized strength to share knowledge, experience, and old age wisdom. So, as you have heard, I'm more than my name, or my profession, or my activities that I participate in, or in the external sense of things, the way Margaret was scripted to introduce me. Okay. So it seems that human our human nature brings along with us a mental and cellular memory of our family lineage. So this is where we get going in shaping our personalities and who we ultimately become. And in particular, it's the early life, firmly set, correct patterns and beliefs of our parents, of others we associate with at the time, could be siblings, and those beliefs turn into survival patterns. And as we grow into the mature stage, we often pass those patterns on to our followers unknowingly. So even though there may be no active relationship with any family member, living or deceased, or any thoughts or actions towards them, those early life influences, many were well-intended passing on to us. They can produce later in life unintended consequences. Does anyone relate to that? I see a lot of participation there. Okay, give thought for a moment. When it comes to those you do have relationships with, are you insensitive, a faker, make up stories, have a need to deny reality, emotional feelings like embarrassment, fear, shame, sadness, insecurity, disgust, jealousy, and the list goes on and on? If your answer is yes, your authentic self is being suppressed by masks or costumes sewn with the threads of self-deception, likely spun long ago through family and social influences. However, this is about the here and now, and to deal with those limiting relationship factors. So in preparing the talk, I came across a useful definition by Andrea Matthews, who's a psychiatrist and author of a workbook called Restoring My Soul, a workbook for finding and living the authentic self. And if there's any interest, it's available on Amazon. She writes, "The authentic self is the real you. Yes, it's hard to distinguish the authentic self from the masks and costumes we've worn for years, which have shaped our identity. Those masks and costumes were created through specific thought patterns, often based on beliefs and actions to survive our upbringing. The authentic self is buried below those thoughts patterns until recognized and changed. And to create a change, this requires an internal willingness." So there's a barrier, there's a wall, there's a challenge to be overcome, creating the willingness and begin a process of change. So just to let you know, this is not a new issue in the history of human beings. It goes back a very, very, very long time. And I'll go back starting with what Confucius had to say about this. And this would have been in the year 500 BCE, roughly 2,500 years ago. Confucius said, "Real knowledge is to know the extent of one's ignorance." Socrates came along in 400 BCE with a little shorter statement of "know thyself." Leonardo da Vinci chimed in on the subject around the year 1500. "One can have no smaller or greater mastery than mastery of oneself." Now this one I really like. It's in the contemporary time. A PhD by the name of Nathaniel Brandon. "Popularity is not self-respect." And in my mind's eye, I could envision that on every congressional member around the world. Popularity is not self-respect. Medical doctor Stuart Brown, this is key. "The self that emerges through play is the core of authentic self." The self that emerges through play is the core of authentic self. And how many have forgotten what play is? You don't have to put your hands up. An author by the name of Sharon Alder, "A life out of balance is a person that doesn't believe happiness can be achieved now or in the future." Carl Jung chimed in, and I think this is another good one. "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." Victimization, self-imposed. And then the ever-popular Dr. Phil. He had a little longer something to say, but it's good. "Your authentic self is who you are when you have no fear of judgment, or before the world starts pushing you around and telling you who you're supposed to be." That's profound. "Your fictional self is who you are when you have a social mask on to please everyone else. Give yourself permission to be your authentic self." Words of wisdom from Dr. Phil. So I mentioned a quote by Andrea Matthews a few minutes earlier, and she offers a 5-step process to assist in revealing your authentic self. First, challenge yourself to look within. Begin to notice feelings and desires. Get in touch with what's going on in the mind and body. Second, evaluate those patterns or beliefs by listening to the repetitive mind talk and observing actions, reactions, being controlling, defensive, deceptive, feeling insecure, or whatever those feelings might cause one to have. And third, give the mind talk pattern or action a clever or fun name and create an image for your feeling or thought. So recognize it as a friend. Give it a name, give it an image, appreciate it. 4, form an awareness of those patterned responses. There will be patterns developing. At this point, those patterns will begin to create urges to do something different and express yourself in a more authentic sense. It's a process of moving towards authentic self-expression. And note any changes, in particular in energy levels, either more or less, as being confirmations of a shift occurring. And Andrea goes on to number 5, pursue those urges by taking direct actions. Stay focused and avoid being distracted by others, wanting you to maintain the status quo. The naysayers, oh, that won't work, oh, you can't change, oh, that's just the way it is. Follow me. Okay, so now we push off those. It's important to stay steady with the authentic self concepts, feelings, and efforts, as confidence in change builds new beliefs and new views and new ways of experiencing life. And those new ways will have a softer and kinder type of response. And they will also become routine. And of course, there will be slip-ups. However, with each, an awareness of those old patterns emerge. So when there is a slip-up, you fall off the wagon or whatever, you have an awareness of what's just occurred. And you now have an opportunity to make a different choice. And that's the choice, and it's the new choices that take us forward in life. So then this multiple step process will become familiar and ongoing as the benefits become life-changing in a recognizable and favorable manner. Now that was a contemporary view of dealing with the problems of identifying the authentic self. So now I'm going to go back a little further in history and draw on the writings of the Mexican author Don Miguel Ruiz in the 4 Agreements. There he shares ancient Toltec cultural history and wisdom for creating major agreements and happiness from within. And the Toltec culture was in the period of the years 800 to 1000 of the Common Era. And he says, coming forth from that culture's wisdom, be impeccable with your word. Carefully examine what you say to yourself, what you say to others, and when you decide to speak. Use your words consistently to express and strengthen your own values. Avoid using or passing over factual distortions and untruths when communicating. Express your self-authenticity. Earn trust. Act and do what you say. Second, avoid taking on anything said personal. That's another biggie. It's not about you. Then avoid personalizing comments. Rely confidently on your own well-founded self-concept. Yours is the only evaluation of your true worth that matters. Challenge your first-person viewpoints. 3, avoid making assumptions. Suspend judgments. Readily acknowledge what you do not know. And have the courage to ask questions, just like Rosemary. Carefully examine the evidence and responses. Accept your own intentions and avoid attributing them to others. Retain a healthy skepticism and avoid cynicism. Develop, refine, and consistently apply your own well-founded concepts and factual knowledge. 4, always do your best. All you can do while recognizing you cannot do it all yourself. All you can do is all you can do. Nothing more or less. It's rather simplistic. When you truly have done your best, there's no reason for shame, self-criticism, or pity. And it's okay to goof off. That's his words, by the way. It's okay to goof off. If you do your best when it matters, apply your time and efforts towards your chosen and important goals. So, getting to this point, we passed through many centuries in gaining simply a sense of our true self qualities. So now I'm going to read a short story written many years ago titled Appropriateness, the Myth. In this fictional story, I relate a journey to discover the authentic self. It is written as a self-talk narrative with an imagined other. But 1 minute, I think there's a commercial taking place. Okay. Appropriateness, the myth. I was this way. What about you? I suspect we all were, right? Haven't we been existing this way a very long time? At times, though, we try to be so appropriate that we are dying from within. I did. I was. And I often wondered why I was always so tired. I look back and it was like having a different face and script for everyone and every situation. Remember those artificial masks we wore? I was really proud of mine. What about you? There was the small one that covered up my sad, inner, hurting feelings by hiding the pain so well. And then the denial face, acknowledging my altered realities. There is no overlooking the adaptive look, masking my personal integrity. There were masks for anger, shame, guilt, and of course the fear one. This one really spoke out about me the loudest. My list seems endless. What about yours? It's like I knew the importance and appropriateness of being appropriate. How about you? I did it at work, at home, in my relationships, with phenomenal consistency. And for you? I was a slave to my desperate perceptions up until the time I chose to awake. Since gaining a measure of awareness, I say nonsense to appropriateness. Now I realize things were the way they were supposed to be at the time. They were because each expression of appropriateness turned out to be a gift containing a universal lesson waiting to be unwrapped. Now or later, this life or next, it doesn't matter, since the universe is patient, not like me. Oh, if only things were different back then. But now I know that wasn't appropriate. It seems to me it was a self-consuming control issue. Imagine that. Me letting me wallow in the muck for so long. All that time the universe was willingly waiting without judgment for me to awaken. So, what about now? Do I know who I really am? I had play acted with my appropriateness mask for such a long time, I was experiencing life in a desperate way. Now, having awakened, my journey through this lifetime is one of discovering the true self. It's like doing a puzzle in reverse and creating a new and different and wonderful picture with the same pieces. Wow, the exact same pieces? So when my fears emerge, my old pattern reactions encourage me to run and get my favorite mask. I surely know this is not the smart thing for me to do. For when I do, I find the emotional pain clings like flytrap paper. When I don't, my foundation feels like it's crumbling. Is this a catch-22 situation or what? So, what to do? What might work? Isn't there a quick fix? Through the process of elimination, I figured out the Native American medicine of the sweat lodge helped me to discover my very own levels of courage that feels right at the time for me to honor and heal my pain. At times I've wondered why it had to be so hard, so painful. Then like clockwork, the message comes to me to embrace the feelings, the process, and bless the pain, for it is nothing more than a sheer veil dividing the space between being awake and being asleep. Simply put, the pain feeds the ego's huge appetite and spawns the craft materials for new masks of appropriateness. Those in my life, the men and my very special lady, friend, listen as I express my feelings and help me to deal with my pain, my shame, my unworthiness, my fears, my hurt inner child. I now view those masks of appropriateness as being attached cement blocks with the power to hold me at the bottom of my deepest fears. Is this appropriate? For whom, I ask. Not for me is the message that comes forth. Over the years, I've met people willing to express their free-spirited desires. Now, I invite the world to experience the burning of my appropriateness mask and witness emerging expressions of freedom and the discovery of my true self. And to borrow the lines from a popular kids game, hide and go seek, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, ready or not, here I come. Thank you. So questions, please.
Thank you, Lou.
You're welcome.
Lou will now take your questions, your experience, comments. Please hold your hand up and someone will bring you the mic. Thank you.
Thank you, Louis.
You're welcome.
I was going to share what's inappropriate. And what's inappropriate is that I lived in Boulder when Naropa was the Naropa Institute. And you're going home. And one thing in your talk that really came to my attention was about Dr. Phil, because he's in this time. And my experience of him is that he went to the top. He was on top of the world, and then he went right down into the coals and dragged through the muck. And so your quote by him, to me, felt like it was really his experience. It wasn't something from his head. He experienced that. So he's free. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I like very much what you had to say and your reference to Don Miguel Ruiz, who, of course, has the four agreements that you mentioned. And he also calls the whole process of acquiring our inauthenticity, he calls it actually domestication to the dream of the planet, which is not our own dream, and that domestication, like dogs and cats, that are domestic, starts when we are lying in our crib and these talking heads, be their parents and later on teachers, start telling us what we should be rather than what we were meant to be. And so I appreciate very much what you talked about, but it's a very hard process to shed all that stuff through our lifetime and reach the point where you truly have the courage to be as much yourself as you can be. And gratefully at our age, we have a chance to do that still. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comment. One thing you said, it's a very hard thing to do. I view that as a self-limiting statement, and I'm not meaning criticism, I just want to open up another line of discussion. A self-limiting concept, and these words are used all the time, which hold us back. I can't, I won't, it's too hard. Oh, they won't like it. No, express ourselves, have that courage, step into it, and make something happen that pleases you. We can't please other people. And we limit our even attempts to please ourselves. But thank you.
Thank you for your speech here. I suffered from PTSD for a number of years, and it starts in childhood, dysfunctional, then into the war scene of Vietnam. And just recently I got over that, right? And by learning to go within on the self-talk, watching for the red flags that pushes your buttons, being forgiving, understanding, that was all very important to learn. And it was, I had a lot of anger. I think a lot of veterans do. Yeah. And because of the lies and what you experienced. So you were right on. And anybody here, I'm sure there's a lot of veterans here that, from different wars or whatever, deal with that PTSD. And we all have it too, the women too, in their own way. Get over that anger issue, try to deal with it, and be true and honest to yourself, and non-judgmental, forgiving, all those things. It works, and life is good. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you for your military time. We get caught these waves, and I spoke earlier of mental and cellular memory, and a lot of what the veterans will deal with, and others, by the way, including youngsters born to mothers who have used illicit drugs or haven't had the best pregnancy habits and practices. So it's before the cradle, actually, in today's world. But an effective way to rid of this is to write a letter to Vietnam. You might want to write to Lyndon Johnson. And just really have it. Really let him have it in the language that you want to use. Every conceivable name, whatever, to rid those memories from the cellular base. And what you experienced, you let those memories out. They're no longer your cellular level. And it may not all get cleaned out, so it might be a repetitive process. But you just let all that anger get flowed to a piece of paper through a pen, a pencil, or I think that's even better than the keyboard, actually. And of course, it's a letter, it never gets mailed. However, you can do with it whatever you want. And the suggestion might be to get a bowl, tear it up, put it in that bowl, light it on fire, and watch the ether carry that cellular memory away. If that can be helpful.
Thank you, Lou. It seems to me that the word that authentic self inspires is authenticity. And if you have authenticity, what it leads to is not a self that is one-dimensional, but a self that is multidimensional. I think that, so what I would want to add to what you say is that the self that we find is not always a nice, consistent oneness, but it is a wide divergence of ideas about who we are and things that we experience.
Thank you, Dave.
Hi, all those masks that you were talking about, those would be considered defense mechanisms. And people use those defense mechanisms when they are attacked either from a cellular or a emotional reaction. So I think all of those masks do serve a purpose. You can know who you are, but you can bring out your masks when you so choose to. And I think that's part of the multifaceted system, that you can manage to be who you are, because you need to have those defense mechanisms to survive.
Think about this for a moment. You're feeling the need to be defensive because you've taken on something that's been projected at you. So who owns that? Who owns that embodiment of that projection? I made the comment in my notes about you don't own it. You don't own it. You don't need to take that on. It's not about you. That's what I had in the comments. It's not about you. It's that other person's drama. And we're so darn willing, for a myriad of reasons, to want to take that on. We're like, the hell with you. Screw you, buddy. I don't want your baggage. I'm not going to buy into that. So it's like, we all know people with dramas. I mean, there's no shortage of dramas, right? They abound. We make a choice to buy in and accept that baggage. And then we feel like crap and we feel we need masks. But if we don't buy into it, it's not about me. You're pounding on me? That's about you. And my choice of not wanting to buy into it.
So if someone attacks you verbally, let's say, how do you proceed?
How do I proceed? I simply say, are you finished? It stops them in their tracks. Have you finished? I've been a good listener. I've listened to you. Are you done now? Okay.
Well, I think in the kindergarten, all schools should start teaching children self-love, self-worth, self-respect, self-esteem, self-confidence. Because I think what happens throughout our world is people do not have a sense of self because they're always connected. The children were connected to a family, then a Republican or a Democrat, and it goes on and on. And I think this woman brought up a very interesting point. That it is true, how we react is how we find out who we are. I know you've heard the expression, the shoe doesn't fit. I'm not gonna wear it.
Just one comment there. If that's your agenda for public schools, it's great. Then where's the time for reading, writing, and arithmetic? I'm with you, Rosemary.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that too, where when I'm awake, I can use my masks to actually serve me, to actually make a communion with the other, rather than, well, to quote you in a sense, if someone attacks me, it's screw you, in my mind, screw you, it's your stuff, and blah. But in essence, to me, that response is also my stuff. And that it completes the circle. So I can literally connect with that other being as myself. There's no pushing it away. And to just to make a point in a very few words, which I think I can. I had a patient who was crack and AIDS baby in the sense that he was probably about 18 months old. And if you know, like with the crack child, nobody can touch him, even his mother. And so when the baby is touched, it's like He just screams and goes wild. Well, briefly, what I did is I put him on my back, facing the other way, and I went to a place where I was preparing food for this group of people, and had him on my back. Had William on my back all this time, and I didn't tell anyone in the kitchen what it was about or anything. I didn't make any issue of it, and just walked around with him and did my work. And by the third day, William was being touched. He was sitting by himself and eating. And I don't know where I'm going with this other than there's that, like children, you know, where there's that innocence that we see, and then it awakens that within us, and then here we are. Thank you.
You're welcome.
The parents. Closer? Okay. The parents. When I was 42, I realized I think I'm grown up. And I expected miracles of myself. I really was excited about all the things that would change in my life. But I'm here now, and I'm just beginning old. And the parents are still there. In fact, my mother's still alive. And my husband loves to hate her, but he has every reason to. Loops, memory loops. You know, you're big, you're fat, you're ugly, you're no good, you're never going to amount to anything, you're no good. I wish you were dead. I hate you. I want you gone. They're so deep, and I overcompensated. And, you know, people pleaser, trying to be everything that I could possibly be to everyone but myself. And so now it's all about me. It has to be, because I've only got 5 minutes left to live, and I want to really enjoy it. So.
I can't speak for everybody, of course, but I think many of us have gone through this phase of parent bashing. And I made the point of, you know, it's about the here and now, which is what you talk about. And I also do firmly believe that until we're healed within ourselves, until we're complete within ourselves, or as close as we get to that point, or healthier than we are at the present, how can we be of service to anybody else? And if we have a sense of wholeness of our own being, how can we be of help or service to others? Because we don't want to project our stuff, our baggage onto them. You know, in therapy, they encourage people to speak. They don't have to hear the therapist talk, but they want to hear people speak to get it out of them. So that's their service. Anyway, you see more hands? I hope so.
Thank you so much for your presentation.
You're welcome.
It means a lot. I have 2 comments. Once, when my daughter started teaching, she was teaching kindergarten, and I went to one of her classes, the only one I ever went to. And I asked her, I said, honey, what is the most important thing that you're teaching these children? And she said, I'm teaching them self-esteem, because if they have that, they can learn anything. The other comment is I had the honor and privilege of working closely with a woman named Virginia Satir. She taught me more than anyone has taught me in my life before or since. There's 2 concepts that stay in my mind. One is she devoted her life to help people become more fully human, which is what you're talking about. the image she used sometimes was an onion. That we are like an onion. And our job is, through our whole life, we never really do get to the core, but our job is to take off one tiny layer at a time and discover who we are.
Thank you. You know, I was mentioning to Teresa coming down, and I'm not sure how we got into this conversation, but about the really good, nice, kind people we know, they tend to die young, which leaves the others, the SOBs and whatnot, to hang around for a very long time. And what we came to around that is, well, they just have more time and opportunity to get their stuff straightened out.
How old are you?
How old am I? You don't want to.
That's a loaded question.
I'll be authentic. I'm 76.
Good for you. One of the things that there's a book out that I kind of adhere to, what you think of me is none of my business. It has nothing to do with me. So I'm real good at shuffling that off, most of the time.
Excellent. What's the name of that book again?
What you think of me is none of my business.
Perfect. Thank you.
Just one comment in the middle of this. One time in one of the advanced NLP classes that I went to, everybody was going around introducing themselves, and I'd been thinking about this for a while and said, I'm a process, and everybody got real quiet, like he's weird, so.
Jim, you've endeared yourself to all of us. Thank you.
Mentioning a book and in reaction to the comments of the lady before there about parents. My process started also with a book, and I don't remember the author, but it's called Homecoming. And I forget who the author is, but it's a psychologist. And he takes you through these processes that you talked about as well, of writing letters. Even writing a letter to myself about when my traumatic life began after birth. I don't remember my conception, but although there are some novels that in which Tristram Shandy, one of the earliest novels, does. And so, and he wants the person who uses that book not to do some of these exercises at the beginning alone, because they will be so hard, so damaging. And I opened the book and I started crying. I couldn't do anything. And I had a good friend, and I said, look, I can't do this. Because this had been me for so long. And then she said, don't worry, I was on a Saturday, and I said, I'll come on Sunday and sit with you on Monday. And I said, the first thing to do is what you suggested to the gentleman here. Take a piece of paper, because this was really she knew that it was all about rage with my father. And she gave me a piece of paper and a lot of pencils of various colors. And just let me sit there. And I didn't write anything. I just went like this. Got this all out. And then I finally was able to start this book called Homecoming, which got me to some point, a better space in my life. Thank you.
Just an extension of that is, you can write a letter, and this is based on one of your comments, to your inner child.
Yes, that's what it's about. Homecoming to your inner
Or
child.
write the letter to your inner child and be grateful and thank that child for the issues they experienced to get you to where you are right now, right here, this place, this time. So you can write a letter of gratitude to that inner child. That's just as another approach. When I was studying at Naropa, I was there and did have the opportunity to meet and visit with for a short time Allen Ginsberg, before he passed away. And then I decided to take a poetry writing class, and I had no clue about writing poetry. And the class was quite good. Anyway, one of the expressions that Allen Ginsberg would use is, you get naked. You get naked in your writing. You get to a point in your writing where something may seem very difficult. You're embarrassed by it. You're withdrawn from it. You want to push it away. You're angry at it. Whatever. Get naked and write it. Write your truth, be it in poetic form or essay form or whatever form. Scrawl it on a wall. Not here though. Not this one. Anyway, that's another approach to feeling naked about exposing yourself as to who you are. And you're just exposing it to yourself. But you're getting it out of that cellular memory.
Thanks, Lou.
You're welcome.
Listening, probably most of my life has been a process of finding out who I am and becoming authentic. And I probably tried everything that's been talked about, the writing, the going inside, writing to my mother, and they're all helpful. My main way of learning who I am and helping others to go through this process is through an art process, whether it's through collage, color, and it's not like you have to be an artist. So there are many, many ways, because some people don't write. I do some writing, but that's not really my forte. So it's like to know movement, dance, the play, the quote you did about the play, just to reveal yourself. It's just like through all of these things, and it's in this area here where we are now, everything is open to all of us to become more authentic. Thank you.
Thank you. And yet, it's the medium that speaks to us. I write, so that's the one that speaks to me. But art, music, dance, if you want to really challenge yourselves, try doing contact improvisation. That's where you're going to be some walls, I guarantee it, in a dance form called contact improvisation.
Explain that, please.
Contact improvisation would be what 2 people, 3 people dance, and they're dancing with a lot of body contact. And the first thing that comes up is all the sexual BS that we have running in our heads. And you've got to overcome that. And that can be very, very, very difficult. But you get into all kinds of positions in movement and flow. And see, I can't demonstrate it. I don't know anyone here.
Do it with me?
Sure. I'll be the... So, no. Slow. So you can just move around however you wish. Don't have to model it. But it's flowing, it's body contact. Yeah. So you get the idea. But it'll end up on the floor, and you'll be rolling around, and it's just that contact with the body. But it's an art form. There's nothing ugly, disgraceful, embarrassing about it. It's an art form. And I guarantee you, anyone who wants to go do that, they're going to hit some walls. They will hit some really, really high walls around our early life conditioning and programming. We don't touch. The Western culture, they don't touch, right? Come down here into Mexico, everybody wants to hug and kiss and all that. How different is that from Wisconsin, Minnesota, Colorado, through the South and whatnot? They don't want to touch. It's their nature. And there's reasons for that, by the way. And if I'll briefly mention what those causes are. It happened at the end of the Ice Age, when people migrated into Europe, and they come from fertile valleys, like Mesopotamia, and well, it wasn't Mesopotamia at the time, but the Tigris river region. And they had a pretty good growing season. But when they got into Europe, they have an abbreviated growing season. And in a sense, it was like 6 months to live, 6 months growing season to live 12 months. So it became all about productivity. Getting our food for the 6 months when we didn't have a growing season. It was about survival. So our white-skinned people are descendants of that. So we didn't have time to touch and be close and hug. We had to be productive. And if you weren't productive, you were out. You come into Mexico, and you have a growing season that's 12 months long. So they didn't have the stresses and pressures. And of course, the people from up north, they resent the Mexicans. You know, they say all kinds of not so nice things about their customs and habits. But it was all dependent on their food supply. There was scarcity there was abundance here. Different lifestyles. So that's where the Western people got the thing about not touching. And improvisational dance really, really forces that out.
We have time for one more question, two more questions. I am